like a polished speaker writer. Raise your hand if you've done fable. Raise your hand if you've done narrative. Raise your hand if you've done anecdote and proverb. Raise your hand if you've done refutation and confirmation. Raise your hand if you've done commonplace. Raise your hand if you've done... okay, so here's the deal. Here's the deal. Now, we are going to do 1 week on fable just to get that thing moving again. Then we're going to do 2 weeks on narrative. Then we're going to do 3 weeks on anecdote and proverb. They're combined. Then we're going to, because you should have these things in your belly like you know your own name. And then we're going to do commonplace, praise and blame, comparison, description, character, and the thesis and law. We're going to step out the whole year. We're going to do all of them for the whole year. Now the goal is, when an ancient writing teacher taught you to write, they did not mostly want you to write like a book. They mostly wanted you to be ready in a second to say what you need to say to make a difference in that situation. They wanted you to be quick on your feet and know how to say what needs to be said. Most of leadership is saying the right thing at the right time. So they were training leaders with their writing program. And that's why we're using it too, to train you the same way. So, they came up with this word, copia. Copia. Have you guys ever heard of copious? You know you're hydrated in the summer if your pee is clear and copious? It's clear and a lot of it. Copious means a lot. If you're yellow and every couple hours, then your only way to being sick. You need to drink more water. Copia means a lot. And it means easy. So they trained their writers to come up with another way to say the same thing. Another way to say the same thing. There was this one guy in the Renaissance named Erasmus, and he wrote a book to help train people in having lots of language. It was called On Copia. And as an example, he wrote a sentence. Your letter pleased me greatly. And he wrote it something like 100 different ways. Just to try to say that one simple sentence another way, and another way, and another way, and another way. So actually I have the handout where you can see all the different ways he wrote, your letter pleased me greatly. It's kind of fun. Thanks. Oh, you want to help me pass them on? So for example, he said, your letter mightily pleased me. And he said, to a wonderful degree did your letter please me. Or he said, when your letter arrived, you could have seen me jumping for all the joy I felt. Or he said, heavens, what causes for joy did your letter provide? Or how exceedingly agreeable did we find your epistle? Or your letter made me positively jump for joy. Or on receipt of your letter, an incredible delight seized my spirits. Or your missive showered a wealth of gladness upon me. Or at the sight of your letter, the frown fled from my mind's brow. You guys see how you can say the same thing? Like, I really liked your letter. You can say it 100 different ways. That's the skill of a good writer. And it's also one of the main reasons we do fable. The very first thing we're going to do for just this week, is we're going to take an existing story and rewrite it in your own words. But not just rewrite it like it is. You're going to add to it. Okay? And one of the things that the ancient writing teachers did that was really nice is they actually just made a list of what makes writing good. If you put it in there, your writing will be good. So for example, they would say, Okay, you have a story. One of the things that you should do in there is describe what somebody looks like. Make a description of their body. Okay? So for example, I rewrote a story called The Boy and the Filberts. Do you know that story? Here's the story. It's really short. A boy was given permission to put his hand into a jar to get some filberts. Another word for filbert is hazelnut. But he took such a great fistful that he could not pull his hand out again. So he was a greedy little kid. There he stood, unwilling to give up a single filbert, and yet unable to get them all out at once. Vexed and disappointed, he began to cry. So he's just standing there in the kitchen with his hand in the jar, grabbing some nuts out of the jar, and he won't let one go, and it's stuck. And he won't let one go, and he can't get it out, so he's just crying. And his mom comes in. "My boy," said his mother, "be satisfied with half the nuts you've taken, and you'll easily get your hand up. Then perhaps you may have some more filberts some other time." And the moral of the story is, do not attempt too much at once. So, I decided to add a description of the body. And so I described the boy 3 different ways just to try it out. The boy was skinny and licked his lips too much while he talked. His mom had just given him permission to grab a handful of nuts. Here's my second one. The boy's meaty hand moved from his pocket to his sticky mouth. He was about to take a handful of filberts. His blue eyes clear with intent. The blonde-haired boy shuffled into the kitchen, flicked his hair out of his eyes. "Mom, can I have it?" So I described him 3 different ways. Okay, another thing you can do is add dialogue. So I introduced some dialogue to the story that wasn't there before. "Mom, can I grab something to eat?" "Sure, you can take some nuts, but only a few. I don't want you to spoil your dinner." Or, "Hey baby, why don't you grab a few nuts since we're heading out and we'll be back till late?" Or, "Mom, where are the filberts? Can I have some? I'm starved." "Okay, but you know the rule, one handful." Okay, another thing you could add is description of the action. It had been a rough day already, and the boy couldn't handle it. The heat of frustration and anger rushed over his body, and trembling, the tears started to fall. Or, his eyes burned red with the hot tears of anger and frustration. Or, yanking one more time, the glass pinched his hand, and it was too much. The boy started to cry. So you see how adding those little descriptions can make the story different? How big? Oh, they're not too big. So here's my rewrite adding those descriptions. "Hey baby, why don't you grab a handful of nuts before we leave since we're heading out? Won't be back till late." "Thanks, Mom." The boy's eyes were focused as he pulled his hand from his cargo shorts pocket and hungrily punched it down into the jar of nuts. He grabbed an enormous pile. He started to yank his hand back out, but it was stuck. He stood there for a minute. He couldn't get his hand out, and he didn't want to let go of a single snap. It had already been a long day, and as he pulled one more time, the glass pinched his hand. It was too much. The boy started to cry. His mom came in with a compassionate smile. "Son, if you let some go, you can get your hand out. You can always get some more later. Do not try too much at once." So the idea is we're going to take an existing story, and in order to develop a lot of words, you're going to say it your own way, and we're going to tell you to add certain descriptions into it. Like you should be able to tell one of these simple stories from the inside out or from the end to the beginning. You should be able to add any number of descriptions. You should even be able to do it as a poem if we asked you to. Like make it to a song. The Tale of the Filberty Boy, if you will. So the idea is you're going to take this thing and dress it up. Okay? We'll start tomorrow.